All right, today we are diving deep into a piece of legislation that is completely redrawing the map for digital money in the US. We're talking about the Genius Act of 2025. And really, it's a story about how you get from total chaos to crystal clarity.
For the longest time, this has been the question hanging over the entire financial world. Are stablecoins the future, a real revolution in how we move money? Or are they just a risky, unregulated experiment waiting to blow up?
And the thing is, for years, the answer was kind of both. Stablecoins were stuck in this weird, murky, regulatory gray zone. They had all this incredible potential, but they also carried some serious risks. And that uncertainty, it basically put everyone from the startups to the big banks on pause.
So here's how we're going to break it all down in this explainer. First, we'll look at the chaos before the act. Then, we'll properly introduce the Genius Act itself. We'll walk through the new rulebook, explore why this is such a game changer, and finally, we'll look at what's next for digital money.
Okay, first up, let's really set the scene and talk about the world before the Genius Act. It was a landscape defined way more by chaos than by clarity.
And this slide, well, it really says it all. The before picture was a total regulatory gray zone. You had different rules in different states, which just created massive uncertainty across the market. The after picture, it's a clear federal framework, consistent, bank-grade standards, and with that, a huge boost in market confidence. The guesswork is finally over.
So, how do you fix all that chaos? Well, that brings us to the solution that came out of Washington, the Genius Act. So what is this thing exactly? The name itself, Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins, tells you a lot. At its heart, it creates a brand new official category called Permitted Payment Stablecoin Issuers, or PPSIs, and then it wraps them in serious, bank-grade regulation. And let's be clear, this isn't some light touch. It is a complete and total overhaul of the system.
And really, this quote just sums up the whole change in mindset. The message coming from policymakers is loud and clear. Stablecoins are no longer an experiment happening on the fringes. They are now being treated as a core part of the financial system. They're being brought in from the cold.
Okay, so we know what it is. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty, the new compliance playbook. This is where the big ideas become hard and fast rules for absolutely everyone involved.
For the stablecoin issuers, the new world is built on 6 pillars. First, licensing. You have to be an approved PSI to even play. Second, reserves. Every single stablecoin has to be backed one-to-one with super safe assets, like cash or treasuries. Third, those reserves need to be segregated, kept totally separate and safe even in a bankruptcy. Fourth is transparency, with mandatory monthly reports. Fifth, redemption. Users get a rock-solid guaranteed right to get their money back. And finally, AML and sanctions. Issuers have to play by the same anti-money laundering rules as banks. Oh, and a huge one, they are flat-out banned from offering yield. That's key.
And listen, it's not just about the issuers. Banks and custodians have a whole new set of responsibilities too. They're now directly supervised for any of their stablecoin work. They have to meet really high standards for protecting those reserve assets. And they need to have bank-level risk controls in place. And this is a big one. They have to be crystal clear to customers that these things are not FDIC-insured deposits. No confusion allowed.
So with all these new rules, why is this such a massive deal? Why is it a true game changer? Well, I think you can break it down into what I'm calling the 5 C's of transformation.
First up is clarity. Simple as that. The days of wondering which agency is in charge or what old law applies here, those are over. Everybody finally knows the rules of the road.
The second C is confidence. Look, when people know for a fact that every digital dollar is backed by a real, safely held dollar, it builds back trust. It makes a catastrophic bank run on a stablecoin so much less likely. Third is control. That ban on paying interest, that was no accident. It's a critical guardrail designed to prevent a situation where trillions of dollars could flood out of traditional bank deposits and into stablecoins, which could seriously destabilize the financial system. Number 4, consistency. By creating one single standard for the entire country, the Act gets rid of all the weird gaps and loopholes that existed between different state laws. It creates a level playing field for everyone, including international players who want access to the U.S. market.
And finally, the 5th C, consumer protection. At the end of the day, with things like guaranteed redemption rights and clear rules on marketing, this act just makes stablecoins a much, much safer tool for everyday people.
All right, so that brings us to our final section. We've covered the what and the why, so let's wrap up by looking ahead. What does all this actually mean for the future of digital money?
Well, the takeaways are a little different depending on who you are. For issuers, the new reality is that intense compliance is now just the price of admission. That means higher costs, which probably leads to fewer, bigger players. For banks, it's both a challenge and an open invitation. If you're willing to invest in the compliance, you can get in the game. And for policymakers, this sends a clear signal to the rest of the world. The US is serious about leading the charge on regulated digital currency.
And when you boil it all down, here's the bottom line. The whole era of stablecoins being a kind of Wild West experiment, that's over. Their future isn't going to be built on experimentation anymore. It's going to be built on discipline. Which leaves us with one last, really big question to think about. By building all these guardrails for digital money, did the government accidentally kill the very innovation that made this space so exciting in the first place? Or is this just the necessary step to finally build the mainstream trust that digital money needs to really take off?